Today.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and show myself here. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
I did not. I don't know why. You know what? Maybe here. Let's see here. Let me more. There we go. We're showing your screen sharing.
We got that
And
going.
I guess we're just not going to be able to have your video.
Well, you can't see me, so all right. Well, that's fine. Hey, thank you, Karen. Well, that's probably the best introduction I've ever had, and it's got me all blushing here. Um, so last time we talked about a little about concrete, and then because of the energy side of you guys, we did the roofing. And for this one, um, it does go into concrete, but in a different perspective, not the same depth that we did last time with, you know, what concrete's made of and things like that, and hydration in 28 days. That was really focused on the roofing industry. This is going back, and I think it does. I think it does blend over with the spear kind of organizational. It goes into indoor environmental quality, sustainable design, and which does dovetail into energy conservation because where the roots come from. And so this one, as opposed to starting off with a lot of concrete history and science and chemistry, this one actually goes into the history of why we have moisture tests for flooring. And in doing so, it really delves into indoor environmental quality, and it goes back a lot further than a lot of people think. So again, my name is Dean Kraft, and thank you for having me here. As I talked about last time, and Jason knows this as well, I do not mind interruptions during the course of the presentation. I don't mind questions coming up, and so please, Caesar, you're not that late because we were all late, so we're all good. I don't mind questions, comments coming through, and this is what I really like to do in person because I really like to get people, especially that are a little more experienced, shall I say, that's had some couple decades behind them, to kind of chime in. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to talk about eliminating concrete moisture through sustainable design. And with me, given my background in the military and stuff, you know, I got concrete moisture on there. So when I say concrete moisture, we're talking about all the ramifications, negative ramifications, dealing with it even for testing, and then sustainable design. And so we're going to go through a definition of sustainable design. And if you see all those letters past my name, one of the core backgrounds for this one, I showed you some references last time. Some of the core background for this particular presentation was my doctoral studies. I got a business doctorate in 2017, and I did my dissertation on the flooring industry's approach for assessing concrete slab moisture. Longitudinal study, about 40 years of literature review, a lot of my own research, doing presentations like this, asking questions, audio taping, full disclosure, non attributed, to get people's feedback on what they've experienced. So we're going to go through that, but a lot of this came from that research. And so if you want any of those research items, just please let me know. Okay, so why are you here? And this is one of those things I really like to do in person. So, you know, does anybody specify flooring? You know, does anybody have any projects with flooring? Pretty much, I've got you all right there, unless you're designing grass huts in East Timor. I did serve there when I was in the military. Then you probably have projects with concrete slabs. You know, has anybody had a project faced with excessive moisture testing? And what I'm talking about that is, even if not your direct aspect, heard part of your firm, been in the meetings where they're talking about the moisture test for flooring, again, not roofing this time, for flooring. And if so, you know, what options are there? Well, on the flooring side, if the moisture test is high, there's not a whole lot of options, and none of them are good for the owner. They can wait and retest. I was involved with the project, not involved directly. I was asked to consult after the fact on a project in Cleveland, Ohio, 85,000 square foot music recording studio. Moisture tests were high in the summer, right before they're gonna do flooring, hoping to use it for that semester. And because the moisture tests were high, they couldn't put the flooring down. Well, you see the cost of topical right there. They can be quite a bit. I'll let, Jason, there's a quick question from Paul about to sign in for ICC
Yeah,
credit. So
yeah,
I'll let you
I
address
got
that.
all that. I'm monitoring it. Okay.
Okay. And they didn't have the money. They didn't, this is 85,000 square foot music. You look at the numbers, $4, $5, $6 a square foot. They either didn't have the money or the intestinal fortitude to want to spend another $500,000 just to put their flooring down. So they decided to wait and retest. Well, 5 months later, they were still retesting, and it was a significant emotional event because not only did that university lose that project, that brand new building for a full semester of use for students, they were looking at losing it for the second semester. Just because of high moisture test. Or, there's dehumidification. We can bring in dehumidifiers and we can run those. And so what do those do? What do those do? Well, these costs right here at 50 cents a square foot, minimum of 3 weeks, $1.50 minimum, that came from Mississippi budgeting. That's Mississippi budgeting. So I'm pretty sure if you're not in rural Mississippi, then there's a good chance the cost wherever you are is going to be higher. So the idea of bringing in dehumidifiers and just dehumidifying the space is not likely to be enough because, like I said, that was 50 cents a square foot per week, a minimum of 3 weeks. Well, what's that space going to do? Delay, time. And then also, there's the last one, the bottom one. We're going to sign off as is. The contractor is going to say, hey, we're going to roll the dice. My warranty's for a year. Just put it down and move on. Okay. So obviously none of these are good if the moisture test is high. Okay. So that's really the thing staring in the face. Now, that history lesson I talked about. And I'm hoping that this will suck a lot of you in. And this is where I really like to have some feedback. And I'm pacing around and usually I'm getting excited now. And so I started asking, okay, why is moisture testing required? Where did it come from? Why do we have to test slabs for moisture? And one of the things I often heard was, well, it's because of the crappy glues. I mean, I'm talking about some old salts here, and let's just boil it down to brass tack. Oh, the crappy glues. We used to have good glues. Now we have bad glues. I'm just truncating it. I'm like, okay, well, that's actually not correct. That's the story you've been told for the past going on almost 27 years now. That's the story you've been told, but that's not actually true. One thing about history is they talk about the victors are the ones who write the history. So it's whatever their message is. And sometimes they rewrite history. And the history actually that you're being taught begins in 1994 when the VOCs were significantly pulled out from the flooring adhesives, but that's not the start of the story. It actually goes back, and maybe this is the relationship to energy, to the oil embargo of 1973. And I'm a little bit older than Jason, and I've been in rooms and people say like, well, I wasn't even alive. I'm like, well, okay, I do remember it. And people were like, I wasn't even alive in 1992. I'm like, okay, let's just stop with that now. But, and obviously for those who remember, the oil embargo of the early 70s was quite the significant economic event. The gas lines, the price of gas skyrocketed from a quarter to $1. Well, still a 4 times increase. So imagine today if it went up to $10, depending where you live, it would catch everybody's attention, especially if it happened in the next, couple of weeks. And what happened is it just wasn't the price of gas; it was all fuel. And so when you think about hydrocarbon burning power plants, the price of electricity, all power costs went up. And how that trickled down to the built environment is that building owners, building managers were reactionary. because of the cost of the energy. And so what they started doing is at the end of the day, turn the lights off. You know, who amongst you remember the signs? Every building I remember, if you leave, turn it off, right there next to the light switch. And my question to you now is, where are those signs? They're all gone. Maybe in the Smithsonian next to Archie Bunker's chair or something, but they're all gone. But for the decade of the 70s and 80s, those signs were everywhere. And it wasn't just enough for the sign to say, if you leave, turn it off. Some buildings, at the end of the day, basically threw the master switch and turned the whole building off. Turn the building off during the weekends. Schools during the summertime. How many of you remember wood gymnasium floors that within a short amount of time looked like moguls? I grew up in Central Florida, a lot of humidity, and most of the gyms that I had when I was growing up had significant buckling due to humidity during the summertime. Well, it led to other issues, bacterial growth, mold and mildew. But the building owners just didn't stop there, because they knew their insulation wasn't that effective. So the next thing they did was they just sealed everything. They just caulked everything, sealed it up tight. And designers started designing buildings to be airtight. So now we had these. Oh, and the other thing too is HVAC running. So it wasn't enough that they were just being turned off, possibly 40% of the number of hours during a week. The operational capacity was also changed. The number of cubic feet exchange rate was dramatically reduced. So we have reduced fresh air exchange. We've reduced operation time period. And now we're starting to design buildings to be tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. Remember, this is the 70s. We don't know anything about first plane of condensation. We don't know. I was just writing back and forth. I gave a presentation last week, and a gentleman reached out to me about walls, about where the air barrier goes in a wall. Well, Dr. Joe Seabrook, he's the guru with the quote unquote the perfect wall in where that plane of condensation should be, because you want moisture to kept out, but it's got to be air breathable, but it can't allow moisture. We didn't know that kind of stuff, and it wasn't unusual for wallpaper to be an absolute air barrier. So where mold was growing on back of wallpaper, but nobody knew, because that's where the first plane of condensation was, as moisture tried to penetrate back into the building, depending on how the physics was of the airflow. So now we have microbes and all this stuff growing inside the walls, in the ceiling units, less exchange. And so by the end of the 70s, what were our buildings doing to us? Making us sick building syndrome. And it became such an issue by 1984, the World Health Organization actually recognized sick building syndrome as a global issue. Okay. So now we're starting getting closer and closer and closer. You're like, okay, so how does this deal with concrete, moisture, and flooring? Well, in 1987, one of the EPA headquartered buildings, Environmental Protecting Agency buildings in DC, of all places, changed out about 250,000 square feet of carpet, broadloom carpet. And shortly thereafter, more than 100 people were out sick. And this is all reported in the Federal Registry. So if you want to go back and look at it, you can absolutely do it. And I'll even give you the link if you want to go look at it. It's about 500 some odd pages to find it. But conditions such as skin lesions on some people, respiratory distress was a big one, migraines, skin lesions, loss of hair, basically a whole wealth of different physiological manifestations. And some people couldn't even close the building before they had splitting headaches. And during the investigation, and there was a snippet, part of the Federal Registry is an article in the Washington Post, is that during the investigation of what might have been causing this issue, they discovered a compound in the adhesive that was used to adhere that flooring that prior to had never before been identified. Now, aside from this particular presentation, if you want to get a really kind of cold water in the face, just simply research the rate of asthma increase, specifically among our very young and very old, across the 80s and 90s. The numbers skyrocket. When you think about the very young, where do they spend most of their life? On the floor. They play on the floor. They're crawling, laying around, rolling around. They're down close to the floor covering. Now, what occurred then was the Federal Workers Union of the EPA basically petitioned for an investigation. They wanted something to happen. And going through what the EPA did in 1991, they held what was called the carpet talks in DC. Now, don't let that phrase focus you too much. The carpet talks were basically for all floor coverings. Adhesive manufacturers, backing, yarn, dye, all that stuff, to come and discuss exactly what was in these. Because again, now we're through the 80s, so off-gassing of materials, all this stuff is becoming more and more sick building syndrome. Indoor environmental quality is coming much more to the forefront. Now the carpet industry, the flooring industry. And one of the results of this 1991 meeting was this October Carpet and Indoor Quality paper. And basically the EPA held back on taking a more aggressive position because the flooring industry, quote unquote, voluntarily decided to reduce their VOCs. That manifested in 1994 when the first green label adhesive program was initiated. And that program, if you go and link to it, it'll talk about how the flooring industry, based on their concerns, voluntarily decided to reduce these VOCs. But in actuality, it was voluntary only because more legal steps weren't taken to make it more mandatory. Then, of course, through the 90s, those VOC limits got less and less and less and less, often driven by California standards. So that's the history leading up to why the glues changed. It wasn't some just altruistic, arbitrary decision to change because of concern for environmental health. What drove it was a massive issue at, of all places, an EPA headquarters building that led to the carpet talks. The conundrum then, though, based on the longevity of people in the industry, 1994 was 27 years ago now. Most people in the industry don't have 27 years experience. So all they know is what they've been taught since then. So a lot of people believe, well, the VOCs had to come out of the glues. That's what caused the issue. Again, that's not the full story. Once the glues were changed, once the VOCs were pulled out, and here's another question for everybody to think about. Anybody ever use Elmer's glue? I'm sure you have. I won't ask if you ate paste in kindergarten, but anybody ever use Elmer's glue? That's a water-based glue. It's great for arts and craft, glue and paper together, as long as you don't use so much of it. It's got its use. Dries very brittle. But in the same thing, have you ever used super glue? Much different kind of glue, much faster reacting, much more VOC laden, less open time, things like that. So the water-based glue, you use in a different manner. You spread it in a different manner. You use it on different substance as the VOC laden glue, like a super glue. So in effect, and this is maybe a bad analogy, it wasn't that they just pulled the VOCs out. They changed their solvent. In chemistry, water is the universal solvent. So instead of when you take something out of these glues, you gotta change the chemistry, and they went to more water-based. Now a lot of these glues are very good. There's a lot of water-based glues that are very good. Think wallpaper paste. That's a water-based glue. And if you've ever had to deal with wallpaper trying to take it off, it is a mess. So it's an effective glue. But here's something that did not change at the same time. They changed the chemistry of the glues. They did not change the installation instructions. That's like you using Elmer's glue for whatever you do, spreading it or whatever, and all of a sudden trying to use super glue in the exact same manner, or vice versa. It doesn't work the same way. It doesn't cure the same way. It doesn't dry the same way. You don't use the same amounts. It's all different. Massive radical formulation change in the adhesives, not a big change in the installation instructions. How do I know that? Well, in 2016, I authored ASTM F3191 substrate absorption prior to installing flooring. Water drop test to see if the concrete absorbs water or not. Why? Because if the surface is absorptive, you use a bigger trowel, you use more glue, specifically of these water-based glues. If it's non-porous, power trowel, use a very thin layer of glue, maybe put on with a paint roller. And if you don't read the instructions and you put the wrong glue on the surface, you could have a debonding issue simply because there's too much glue and it never has a chance to dry. So throughout the 90s, massive failures. Some flooring industry manufacturers went out of business. Some were forced to restructure. Okay. Leads us to 2001. And there's a white paper, and it was written, authored by, or published by the World Floor Covering Association, assigned by a number of institutes and organizations associated with flooring manufacturing. And it's important to grasp what I just said. This is a flooring industry white paper. So up to this point, other than the introduction, what have I said about concrete? Nothing. This was a flooring industry problem. Began in 1987, changed the adhesives, and all the things they faced in the 90s. But in 2001, they came out with this white paper, very short read. And in this paper, these are the 5 major reasons why they draw people's attention to what made the failures occur in the 90s. Loss of asbestos. And this is one of the ones I like to have fun with in person. Please show me a show of hands of when's the last time anyone in this room has specified flooring containing asbestos. And depending on how old the crowd is, I get very few takers. Some people say like the 70s. My research showed that it stopped being produced in the early 80s. So there's a good chance by 2001, it was not an issue. But it doesn't matter. That's the story that's being told. Loss of asbestos is an ingredient. Number 2, loss of solvents. This is a tricky one. And the word solvents, I believe, I can't prove it, I believe it was a very, very intentional choice of word. It's not correct though. It's not correct. It's misleading. What they lost were the VOCs. But VOCs is a 3-letter word, literally. Actually 4-letter word, VOCs. VOCs. It's you can't be putting that in there because that's related to indoor environmental quality issues. So but they use the word solvents. The reason why this is incorrect is because they didn't lose solvents, they changed the solvents. Because in chemistry, water is the universal solvent. And they went to water-based adhesives, but water as their solvent. Next, increased use of water to allow easier placement of concrete. This is still being presented to this day. Because of lightweight, they have to have more water so they can pump it. I just had this conversation last week with somebody. And that's not true. They use water to saturate the aggregate so it flows correctly and doesn't bind up, but they use plasticizers and mid-range water reducers to get it to flow easy. And in fact, part of my dissertation was to fundamentally investigate all 5 of these reasons. And there is no peer-reviewed engineering journal article that attests, supports that systemically, endemically, there is a issue with just arbitrarily adding extra water. Does it occur? Sure. Most likely not on a commercial job. Why? Because there's a materials inspection company right there working for the owner that's going to catch them. And it's going to cost big time. So this is just a bullet point that somebody threw out there. There is no proof, never has been. Next, lightweight. The first building in the United States built with lightweight goes back to 1928. It had been used for, I don't know, 66 years prior to them changing the adhesives. And now all of a sudden it's lightweight's fault. No. Lastly, fast track construction. In the building and AEC community industry, fast track means beginning construction before design is complete. That's what fast track means. It doesn't mean that how long it takes you to build will be less, because the construction time is the construction time. It just means you have now two overlapping functions going on. You're still completing design, but you've already started construction. So even that choice of terms is not correct. But it doesn't matter. That's the foundation on which people have been taught of why we moisture test. So basically the entire premise is wrong. So just keep that in mind. But also keep in mind what industry wrote this paper. Now, where did that manifest? It manifests in this document right here, ASTM F710. Coincidentally, this document was first published in 1998. The adhesives changed in 1994. This document was published in 1998. That white paper was published in 2001. This document, ASTM F710, is controlled and overseen by ASTM F6 Committee on Resilient Flooring, made up of about 160 representatives, mainly from manufacturers of the flooring industry, moisture testing industry, adhesive manufacturing, and moisture mitigation. All right? Not the concrete industry, not the AEC community. The manufacturers, the one that had to grapple and come up with an answer to this issue. Now, that document says all slabs shall be tested. To this day, some people still think that moisture is a slab on ground issue only for flooring. It is not correct now, and it has never been correct. It's all slabs regardless of age or elevation. So what does this mean? Even a renovation. So if you're redoing a building, or if you're involved with a project that's, 7-story building and they're redoing it, and even though the flooring looks perfectly fine now, they demo it by ASTM, by manufacturer's literature, they're supposed to go in and test again. Okay. Now, this thing with F710, F710 is the standard practice for preparing concrete slabs to receive resilient flooring. However, there's a note in the ASTM Note 6 that also says, though not specifically written for wood, tile, carpet, F710 might be able to use for them. In most of those manufacturers, either directly reference F710 or basically copy the tenets themselves. So pretty much this particular ASTM influences all flooring on concrete slabs, regardless of elevation. All right, so that's the history lesson I wanted to give to you about what happened that really led us to this issue. Energy crunch, vapor type buildings, had no idea with first planet condensation, mold and bacteria growing behind walls, buildings started making us sick, some kind of compound in the glue that potentially led to a lot of people getting sick in the EPA, carpet talks, 1994, adhesives changed, lots of failures, 2001 white paper blaming everything but basically the adhesive itself. And very much downplaying the fact that the installation instructions should have also changed radically. Now, sustainability. Remember, this is eliminate concrete moisture through sustainable design. So and again, if you were involved with last week, I gave you a lot of definitions. So I'm gonna give you some definitions now just to make sure we're on the same sheet of music. Sustainability, where does it come from? When we talk about, LEED program or green design or lean construction, or we're going to design sustainable, where does it come from? Well, in my research, one of the first earliest definitions I came across was actually the World Bank. And the World Bank described sustainability as a requirement of our generation to basically manage this planet's resources so all future generations' quality of life is not diminished. I mean, that's a big, weighty, heavy definition. But I want to draw your attention as well to that 1994. That's the exact same year that the Green Label program came out. The exact same year. Coincidence? I don't know. But also the World Bank is one of the largest organizations contributing to global development. So kind of distill that down. What's the essence? if you're going to be designing sustainably, if we as a species, we got to make sure that we're looking to preserve the average quality of life for all future generations. Well, that's kind of hard to put down on your desk and focus on, when you're trying to design multifamily housing or, a hospital. So we had these other programs that came into fruition. First of all, the LEED system. And if anybody's LEED out there, I believe my research showed that the LEED process came into being in 1993. Again, think of the convergence of dates. 1992 was the carpet talks. 1993 was LEED. 1994 World Bank definition of sustainability, and also the Green Label program with adhesives changing. And some of the tenets of LEED, of what they're really trying to achieve, other than just chasing points for in a plaque, is they're seeking to save the building's owners money over a project's life cycle. Okay, and looking at integrated design, which unfortunately I still don't think is even anywhere near where it should be, because I still see project specs that are just totally in silos as opposed to integrated across various spec sections. So they're looking to save money over the project life cycle. Then you have something called lean construction, very specific. And normally to be exposed to a lean construction project, you would have to be involved with design build. And that's, the literature tells us that lean construction is the first theory of manufacturing, if you will, developed from the ground up just for construction. All other theories that were applied to construction to try to gain efficiencies actually derive from like manufacturing plants, but it doesn't really work. So the process they learn through like Deming and quality improvement and process control and like the Toyota method doesn't apply to construction, because all those for manufacturing rely on a fairly consistent process and people, where the process itself can be improved over time to try to eliminate variations, statistical deviation, and also training for the people and empowering the people. Whereas in construction, the GC team may be different from project to project, as the design team, as the owner, as all the subs. So they literally had to grow from the ground up a new kind of process, and that's lean construction. And then lastly, there's green building. I guess we don't have enough different kind of sustainable processes for designing buildings. Before I want to leave lean construction, I want to focus really on what is the seminal goal of lean: minimize waste in all its forms, maximize value. And that really should leap out to for energy conservation, for IEQ, because when they say minimize waste in all its forms, think about the 100+ people that were put out of work at the EPA in the late 80s. There wasn't really a whole work from home kind of thing. So that EPA headquarters lost over 100 people. Loss of worker productivity is a huge drain on the profit margin of corporations. Well, maybe not government entity, but of organizations. So worker productivity is a huge concern. I know people don't like to talk about it, but it's a huge concern. So keeping workers healthy and happy and coming to work and productive really is worth the investment, because of it minimizes waste in all its forms, because you're not paying for those benefits, that hourly wage, and not getting a return. And then lastly, then you have the green building. Now, all of these definitely have a commonality. They're all processes. So for the engineering mind of you out there, sustainable design is a process. That's what it is. It's a process. And very, very specifically, they have a very particular aim: saving money, saving time, saving resources, minimizing waste. That's the essence. No matter how we want to polish it and go for a plaque, really, to effectively to apply sustainable design, no matter what it is you're doing, you have to review that task, that specification, that process against waste and value. And if you think about a project specification, what is a project specification? It is a compendium of tasks, processes, materials. That's what a spec is. It's task, processes, and materials bound up together, woven together with design to produce some end result. And so literally you can go through every single one of your spec sections and apply this thought process. A great example that literally blew me away. I was at an architect firm that had their own structural engineering in the house. And they told me that they had their own internal Lean Six Sigma review. Now, I don't know how many out there of you know about Lean Six Sigma. That derived from Jack Welch and GE. Total process improvement. You know, you get Lean Six Sigma green belt, black belt. But that was a real core fundamental for project managers going through the 90s and maybe into the 2000s. Lean Six Sigma. But to hear an architect design firm tell me they had an internal Lean Six Sigma design, I was like, what? I didn't even know you guys knew that language. Well, give me an example. He's like, well, for concrete. I'm like, great, I love concrete. And he goes like, well, concrete curing, excellent, great. And he goes, well, ACI allows several ways to cure concrete. I'm like, yep. And he goes, so we stepped back and looked at the allowable methods to cure concrete and looked across the various functions, you know, trying to do integrated design. And one of them is, you know, continuously soaking all the time. It's inefficient and, you know, the water, but you have the constant water cost. And then he goes, we looked at the waterproof plastic and paper. But then he goes, what do you do with that paper and plastic when you're done? It goes in the bin. You don't reuse it. Waste. He goes, so we fundamentally went through all the different methods and we specify curing compounds. It's either a cure and seal or a cure and seal product that's permanent as opposed to resin-based or wax emulsions that cause bonding issues. He goes, we do that because they're sprayed applied, there's little waste from the product itself, and there's no disposal waste afterwards. And he goes, it's also faster. And I was like, holy crap, excuse my French. I was like, I have never heard anybody go through it that way. But I share that as an example. It doesn't matter what it is. You can literally take this waste and value thought process and distill it down, and they applied it to the curing of concrete. That is applying sustainable design at the base level, and they were systematically going through various specification sections throughout their entire master spec, office master, and applying the same thing. Okay, so long story short, if a task material process is wasteful, don't do it. If it does not add tangible value for the owner, don't do it. If you're not doing that, I don't care how many lead points you're going after, you're not really embodying the essence of sustainable design. Now, one of the critical elements of actually effectively applying then this idea, because remember, sustainable design is eliminating all waste in all its forms. Eliminate waste in all its form. So all cost must be taken into account. So ask yourself, and anybody wants to chime in on the chat box, love to hear from you. To you, what is your most valuable or expensive commodity that once you use it, you can never get it back? Nope, look at that, people chiming in. Thank you, Charles, appreciate it. Thank you, Spear, appreciate it. Time. Simple, right? Simple. We all know it. Yep. Well, that's time, and it's going to be losing, so it's definitely not going to get that back. So we all know it, and but how many of us do really effectively incorporate that into? Like one of the things I gave you last time was, you know, one of my presentations, specification strategies to eliminate concrete moisture. We talk about just because a material is inexpensive doesn't mean installing that material is also inexpensive. And unfortunately, in the VE phase, That's not taken into account. So if you want to be more successful coming up to the VE discussion, you got to show the opportunity cost, is the proper phrase, of time. Example, resilient flooring. Okay, resilient sheet flooring is not the most expensive flooring you can install. It's a great product, often used in healthcare and schools, institutional spaces. Great product, just not the most expensive. All right, fairly easy to produce, not the hardest to install. It doesn't mean anybody should do it, but I'm just saying, as compared to maybe an epoxy terrazzo or tile or wood, it's just not the most expensive in the spectrum per square foot. However, if that manufacturer's instructions say, do not install unless you meet 75% RH, which you can never meet, and if you can't meet that, do a two-part epoxy, well, that relatively low cost per square foot resilient flooring may have just quadrupled in price to be able to install it according to the manufacturer's instructions. There's an easy example, there's a perfect example. And in fact, under the specification strategies presentation, there's bullets where the CSI literature to spec writer says, if conditions on your project do not meet what the manufacturer says, change the installation instructions. That's absolutely a recommendation to the spec writer. A lot of people don't go down that path, but time, if you think about it, sometimes spending a little more for the material that's already integrated that can speed the installation is a much better value overall because it saves time. All right. And so the funny thing too about time, we can't create more of it, but you can create a leverage. Okay, you can create a leverage. So if you can eliminate a process, it may give time to the rest of the project. Okay, you have to consider time. You have to consider time. Now, slab moisture testing. A lot of people tell me, well, we do it because the flooring manufacturers tell us to. Well, unfortunately, that's not how it works. The architect and their consultants are the author of the spec. The manufacturer gives recommendations, but their literature is not part of the spec unless you put it in there. So yeah, they've got almost 3 decades of telling you to put it in. But if it goes into the 09 specification, the architect or their consultants put it there. They wrote it. That makes it a design decision, not a manufacturer's decision. I mean, if otherwise every manufacturer would just be saying whatever they want and they'd be writing the specs. So now ask yourself this. Ask yourself this. For anybody out there that actually handles a spec, writes a spec, does design, who has the authority to change, add, or delete wording in your master? Who? Just ask yourself that. Well, you, the designer, I would guess. What about the owner? What about the GC? Yeah, the design professional. I agree, Paul. The design professional. So either the top line. And I didn't mean to say the architect. I would say design professional. So good point. The owner, well, they could sign off on it. That'd be a change. And you can identify yourself for that one. But this is your office master. You can still say, no, that's not the way to do it. We're going to do it this way. GC, maybe the design build. Sure, because you might be working for them. But in a negotiation with the owner, maybe something, but still you can identify yourself, say, okay, we'll put this in, but I disagree. But can any manufacturer come to you and say, hey, change your office master? If so, just let me know and I'll come see you. I mean, but no, that's what I'm getting at though. The design professional, and thank you, Paul, for putting that in there. The design professional is the one that makes the decision, not any of these other people in most cases. Now, moisture test, where is it embedded? It's embedded in the 09. Way at the back of the, well, back in the back, okay? And also too, in the project timeline, the moisture testing also occurs back in the back. So if you've ever been in a project trailer, old school, where they have the whole project timeline printed out on the wall, if you go all the way to the left, close to that corner, concrete is being placed down there somewhere. And then all the way on the right, you have substantial completion. Flooring is down that way someplace. And all this stuff happens in the middle. Concrete's in the 03, designed in a silo. And then the flooring is in the 09, way at the other end. Yep, true. Good point. Unless it's a code violation. But I'm hoping by the time it's an office master that's been resolved. But yeah, there's changes in code, but good point. Absolutely good point. Okay. So, but the moisture testing happens towards the very end. And in some cases, it happens really, really close to the very end, substantial completion, because don't want all the other trades in there mucking up a flooring. Okay. So, what does this language say? What's in there? It may say, inspect when installer present, install per manufacturer's guidelines. These other things right here, CRI is Carpenter Rug Institute, RFI is Resilient Flooring Institute, or whoever's guidelines. 1869 is the calcium chloride test. Do not exceed 3 or 5 pounds. Do not exceed 75 or 85%. This is all bullets directly from various project 09 flooring specifications. Proceed with the installation only after substrates have met these conditions. But who wrote this language? Who initially wrote this language? Where did it come from? I would offer that the design professional did not write this on their own. Blank piece of paper, 09. Put this information in there. Most likely, the core, the DNA of your office master, of your project spec, either came from copy and paste last job. It came from maybe downloading directly from a flooring manufacturer. Lawyers. Maybe downloaded directly from a manufacturer's guide spec. That's a whole different presentation. Maybe it came from an RCAT, free or some kind of access. Great program, don't get me wrong. Spec Link, Master Spec, whatever. But most design professionals did not write it. The flooring industry wrote it. The flooring industry wrote the DNA for the 09 division sections that you have for flooring. What industry yanked out the VOCs in 1994? The flooring industry. What industry did not act as fast to change the installation instructions? The flooring industry. What industry wrote that white paper in 2001, giving 5 bullets that were never true in 2001, let alone today, blaming why moisture testing is required? The flooring industry. What industry dominates the ASTMs that govern flooring? The flooring industry. Now, maybe you saw a pattern there. Now, moisture testing is a design decision. Paul, thank you for supporting that. The design professional is the one that puts it in there. It's a design decision. That's how it gets in there. Paul this says conflict of interest. Hey, I'm just here, don't shoot the messenger, but I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm just trying to peel back, the dirty bandage so we can see what's underneath. All right. So moisture testing is required in all concrete, regardless of elevation, basically required for all flooring, and the flooring industry is the one that put it there. And by the way, they're also the ones that write the test themselves. What value then does that test do for you and your projects, more specifically your owners? Okay, that you, the design professional, are requiring your projects to go through. Remember, this is about sustainable design. What value then are you getting for that investment in money, cost of the test, and the time of the test, and then all the meetings you have when the tests fail? What value? And people come, I ask this question, and I've asked it a lot, and we're going to get there in a second, but I want to go through these tests again. Now, 4263 is still on here because it is used on thick poured gypsum underlayments. This is an excellent question. I don't even know who put it in there. It's a very long one, but I like it. Oh, Chris. As an installer, what do you do? What you do is the installation are inadequate. You notice a flaw in the installed design. I'm working on aerated concrete wall panel project and notice that in the installation manual, there is no way for moisture to escape from behind a wall panel. No weep hole or much at the bottom of the edges. That's a good point. That's actually kind of like the question I got asked from this architect in New Jersey about the moisture, but also too with the wall specifically air, and where is that air going to condense on which side of the panel? And there is, if you send me an email later, Joe Steebrook, Dr. Joe Seabrook has really great information on the proper way of, the moisture plane, and how to get that moisture away, keep it away from the built environment. So I would highly recommend following Joe Steebrook, but feel free to send me a link, and I'll email, and I'll definitely link you to him. That's the conversation I had this morning, not with the aerated concrete panel, but moisture gain in potentially in a wall system. So these are the various moisture tests. I know I touched on them last time I talked to you. 4263 is 1 per 500 square feet, and the other two are 1 per 1,000 square feet. And these are also written by the F6 committee, also written by the flooring industry. Paul, you said about a conflict of interest. They also write the test methods that they tell you that you have to achieve. Make no mistake. Now, again, some of the problems with these tests, it's only for the specific location tested and at the time of the test only. So what does that do? Lawyers, somebody mentioned lawyers. Lawyers have a phrase specific with the contract. And what is specification? It becomes part of the contract for construction, right? In design, bid, build, it becomes part of the, it forms the basis of the contract, okay? So they talk about the plain language of the contract. Well, this is plain language, because if it says, if your spec says install per manufacturer's instructions, by extension, you've incorporated all this too, because whatever their instructions say, you've now sucked it in. If their instructions say test per 2170, you've also sucked that in too. The plain language of these documents, of these test methods, say they're only valid for the point in time. In the plain language, they are telling you they are not predictors of future flooring performance, because they're only valid for today, this second, as soon as your brain recognizes it, and only for that exact location. The test to the far right is less than a diameter of a quarter per 1,000 square feet. So literally, unless your failure manifested directly on top of that quarter size, it has no relevance to the potential conditions elsewhere in the concrete. There is no relevance. You also saw this if you participated in the previous one. Most likely concrete can't even pass the test because of rewetting. Remember, design happens really early on, unless it's fast track. But even so, the design of the slabs or the design of the 09 still occurs before installation. The idea that the go or no go criteria for flooring installation is going to be predicated during design on some future unknown result of a moisture test after the concrete's been exposed to God knows what is insanity. It absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. It's like taking a long shot bet that the Bucs are making the Super Bowl. There's, of course, we had Brady this year. I'm from Tampa, by the way. I'm not a fair weather fan. I was born there, so there we go. It's not like somebody like taking a long shot bet, maybe a better one, for Cleveland, or heck, the Bills in August. Hey, Bills are going to go all the way and win. And put the right number on the. Well, that's what we're doing here. It's a long shot. It's not a high probability long shot at that. How can you know? You can have a pipe burst literally the day before flooring is supposed to get slabs are getting tested. All bets are off.
At the beginning of the playoffs, I took the Bucks and the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl at 5-1, but not really a long shot when you have Mahomes and Brady. I'm a tech grad, so I've got to root for Mahomes.
Okay, that ends the presentation. I'm gonna cut it off right now. No, just yeah, good point. Paul makes it a good point. When you remember, sustainable design is a process. This presentation is a process presentation, even from the history coming forward, to get you to understand the history, the process that led up to the massive failures in the late 90s. Right. Another test in 2012, another longitudinal test, 13 months of slabs in Dalton, Georgia, high humidity, no climatization, but doors closed at night, open at daytime. They didn't get below the most aggressive limits for flooring. And they also did it for 7 months in an interior HVAC climate, and it still didn't pass it. And there's the conclusion right there. This is an independent test published an ACI magazine, American Concrete Institute, 2012, unless many months of very favorable drying conditions are provided, which your projects do not have, will never have, it will be unlikely or difficult for the slabs to reach the moisture levels. So if that is the most recent compelling research, why then are projects keep chasing this phantom number? Warranties. This is exact language from a manufacturer. What is covered? Free from manufacturing defects. Why? Because that's what manufacturers have control over. That's what they should warrant. All manufacturers also have something called exclusions. Failure of the floor to adhere to the subfloor due to, for example, moisture. It doesn't say if you don't pass the test, it says period. Another one, shall perform in accordance free from manufacturing defect under normal use, does not cover indentation damage from high heels. Why? Because they can't control that. Rolling loads, moisture. The flooring industry is protected. Their warranties protect them from this issue, moisture. Look at their warranties. If you've ever been told that you can't get a warranty because of too much moisture, read the warranty. You're not getting protected against that anyway. And then in 2017, this paragraph was added to F710. The ASTM that covers all slabs to receive flooring. It's the design team. Paul, pay attention there. It's the design professional's responsibility to determine the presence of quality and location of a sub-slab vapor retarder. So most, without you realizing it, most of your 09 specs incorporate F710, whereby you now are specifying yourself as being responsible for doing this. And then you're responsible for making the decision to determine whether or not the moisture test is too high, what you're going to do about it, how to address. Most design professionals have no idea that they are specifying themselves based on this new language that was added in 2017 by the flooring industry to F710. That's how it got in there. So what's all this cost? Remember, sustainability is about eliminating waste in all its forms. In 2008, it was estimated that this issue was a $300 million issue. These are projects being delayed due to moisture. 2015, it was up to $2 billion annually. That's a 7 times increase in 7 years. Is this process working for the AC community? No. It's working for somebody though. I'd like to see my business go up 7 times increase in 7 years. Somebody's profiting off this process. It doesn't include all those other costs. Mitigating damages, litigation, goodwill, future business, opportunity cost to the owner of the project that can't use the space. I mean, what was the real cost to that university that lost their 85,000 square foot media recording studio for 2 semesters? Image, dissatisfied students that thought they're going to have this new space. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The time dealing with answering all the questions in meetings, it's staggering. And that's not even a big project. Long story short, the current process clearly states, going back, this is nothing that I wrote. Most likely the concrete will not pass, period. There's another reference I can give you in 2013, Structure Magazine, that basically says moisture mitigation will likely be required, regardless on lightweight or non-weight concrete. That's a 2013 reference. But when that failure occurs, it's right before flooring installation. Now it's impacting substantial completion. All for an issue that has no warranty for what you're being forced to test. Leaving the responsibility actually on the design team. And make no mistake, anything associated with moisture always falls on the owner. So, based on what you've just seen, if there's a failed moisture test that prevents a project from going forward, just saying it's the concrete's fault, I would offer that the literature says that that process is not designed to move seamlessly through that test. That ends our education portion. Any questions so far?
Are there efforts to change these standards and write out these moisture or change some of this wording? I mean, and fix this?
Let me go back to a slide. Let me see if you can give an answer.
Sounds like it's really not even getting better at all. It sounds like it's just getting worse.
So,
seven
okay.
times worse.
Okay. What industry?
The flooring industry.
Okay. They write the warranty.
Their interests are being served by that.
Ah.
But at some point.
Actually, it has cost them, because I think most of you remember that the Walmarts all used to have resilient flooring, and now they're bare concrete.
Yeah, all the HEBs, a lot of the big corporations.
Why? Because they got tired of mitigation, because it's per square foot. Why they use resilient flooring? Because it's one of the cheapest there is. But it actually backfired against them in the big box stores. Maybe not the big box. When you think of Home Depot or Lowe's, they were always concrete. But when you think about all those other shopping stores, they used to be resilient flooring. So there's clear indication that a lot of those stores, Walmarts, grocery stores, discount stores, Targets, Michaels, not Michaels, but a lot of those stores have gone to bare concrete. But when we think about thank you. Walmart went to stained or sealed concrete around 1999, 2000, right after 6 years of massive failures, Paul. Look at the timeline. The glues changed in 94. 1998, F710 was written by the flooring industry. And then in 2001, that white paper came out. So coincidence? Yep, there we go. And what would a flooring failure do to a Walmart, having to empty that place out and get all that crap out to put their, I mean, Walmart tracks it down to, time is money, opportunity costs. I mean,
oh yeah, it's like $280 a square foot an hour or so, something.
They've got it. They've got it. No doubt they've got it nailed down to a gnat's backside about what it is. And so you ask, is there a move? Well, when you have this kind of growth in an industry, do you think that industry is going to be interested in making a change? And remember where this all came from. $1 million per day with liquidated damages, Walmart. Yeah, there you go. So remember, the flooring industry changed their glues based on their direct talks with EPA. And I would offer, if you're involved with the business and you get invited to DC by the EPA, my recommendation, not your lawyer, but my recommendation is you go. You go and see what they have to say and see if you can't minimize whatever they're planning on doing. And that's what happened. So instead of it being forced, legislated, they voluntarily changed. They yanked up the VOCs, went to water-based glues, massive failures, didn't change the installation instructions, and then basically blamed it on 5 other things that make no sense in 2001. Since then, how they're going to address it is mandatory moisture testing, even though that there's another from ACI 302.2. It clearly shows that since 2004, they've known there is no correlation between the RH of the concrete and adhesion of resilient flooring. That's also in ACI 302.2. So they know that there's no relationship between these tests and subsequent flooring success, but they keep putting projects through this. And all I'm trying to say is, from a sustainable design standpoint, it makes no sense. It just makes no sense. Again, not because I say so, but because the literature of sustainable design says minimize waste in all its forms. If it does not add tangible value, don't do it. The moisture test, there is no warranty for it.
would
not because
think
I,
a savvy lawyer could write up a disclaimer that goes with the design documents of why they're not going to moisture test.
well, this is kind of like, remember that this has been taught probably for as long as most design professionals have been practicing. This is going on now. Well, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch. This is being taught now for over 20 years, to where a lot of people, and especially as we evolve to more, I don't want to say cut and paste because that's going to sound derogatory, but as we go to more like a project team focus, where you don't have the specification professionals having, well, existing, or have the time to really dig in. Remember, I wrote my doctorate on this. And it was the only doctorate that the school had ever gotten like this. And it was one of the top, doctorates they received the entire year, the year I graduated. They were just absolutely, nobody had ever researched something like I did.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to blow my own smoke, but it just evolved from me presenting. But the more I dug into it, I'm like, this is insane. This is literally insane. But when you have, and I don't want to get political, but when you think about the messaging certain news outlets do, if you only watch one news outlet, your understanding of a certain issue may be starting to be shaped by whatever that news outlet wants, as compared to another news outlet. And when you think about this topic, there really is no other alternative view, except you're hearing one now. Why? Because the flooring industry writes the ASTMs, they write the guide specs that make it into RCAT, that make it into master spec, that make it into spec link, that sooner or later make it into your office masters. They wrote that. So let's recap. They write the specification, even though the architect is considered the author, the design professional is considered the author. Where did the architect really get it? Where did the design professional got it? They got it from one of those places. Literally, they got it maybe two steps removed. 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Well, maybe 2 degrees of separation from the flooring manufacturer's guide spec. That's what's in most office masters. So they wrote the specification referring to moisture tests that are required in that spec. Test that they wrote. Then being threatened on a job site that you can't get a warranty for something that most people don't take the time to read, that actually says to address or read, hey, wait a second, we're being threatened with a moisture result that we're not even covered for moisture. This is silly. And one of the recommendations that we have, and I'm glad you thought about it, savvy lawyer, there is a way. There's a way you can, design professionals can kind of flip the script on this. And, Charles just wrote a question. As a design professional, what is the best way to protect myself on choosing smart assemblies? So just make sure to remove that from the spec, ? Well, that's what we're going to go to right now, and that's an excellent question, because we want to leave you with a path forward. And remember, Charles just said assemblies, and I'm glad you used that word, because now you're talking integrated design. Now we're talking about the concrete as the foundation for successful flooring install. Too often, you got the O3 structural engineer, they do their thing, consulting engineer, you pull in the slab, nobody thinks about it, great, breaks pass, FL values, all good to go. At some point in the future, the flooring guy comes in, drops moisture probes, says, hey, it's too much moisture, give me $5 a square foot. And repeat, and repeat, and repeat, job after job after job. As opposed to, wait a second, the concrete and the flooring kind of should be talked about together because the concrete is the foundation for the flooring. Okay, so one way to do that is to proactively address in the O3 the issue of moisture. Our admixture, our MVR 900 does exactly that. It's incorporated in the concrete just like any other admix. It's delivered to the project. Remember, time and money. Yeah, it adds 50 cents a square foot to the concrete, but it eliminates the need to moisture test. So yes, Charles, you could take it out. All right, you could absolutely take it out. I understand what you're saying about admixtures, but the admixture would need to be reviewed because it's in the structural engineering spec. Our product has a C494. Most structural engineers ask for that. They have no issue putting it in because it does not harm the quality of the concrete. Our product actually increases the strength, does not have a negative impact, actually decreases shrinkage by 10% by day 28, doesn't negatively impact flexural strength. So the engineer usually looks at our C494. Here's an example, especially where you guys are. Maybe a small engineering firm that you guys may have heard of down there in Texas, Walter P. Moore. Walter P. Moore specifies our product. So, and I think they're either the largest or the second largest structural engineering firm in the country. So yeah, our product has been reviewed and incorporated and specified by some very, very well known. Hollis & Miller, HOK. We've done a couple projects with HKS. So yeah, it's not a big deal, but I understand what you're saying. You definitely want to have your engineer sign off on it because it's an admix. Now, sustainable design, eliminate concrete moisture. How do you eliminate it? Proactively address it in your spec. This product is already warranted 100% RH. Charles, what could you do? Take out the moisture test. Okay. No further moisture testing required, and you can move right on with your installation. It's delivered the same exact way, placed the same way, finished the same way. Add zero time. On the 09 side, it's also cross-warranted by the largest manufacturer of adhesives in the United States. So now we've got a combination of 03 and 09 things going on here. You also have, addressing it proactively through moisture mitigation. You can really literally go through and say, I know I'm not going to pass the test. Let me just go to moisture mitigation. So you could demo a floor and do this. Or even if you have looking at moisture mitigation, this is a one component. Boise State was looking at a two component. They went to this one component material, same performance rating for permeance, and over a 30,000 square foot project, they saved a full week in installation and $2 a square foot, $60,000, saved time and money. And then lastly, adhesive. You can absolutely go forward and specify a no limit adhesive. No moisture testing. And one of the things we've just recently done is we've created an 09-05-61 common work practices, and it incorporates all of these recommendations and strategies to where it says, it goes through and says, if the slab has an MVRA, no moisture testing required. If the slab does not have an MVRA, moisture test, boom, 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 boom. If the moisture test is high, then look at using an adhesive, so long as it's recommended by the adhesive manufacturer. If there is no adhesive, look at using a moisture mitigation. So it goes to these checks and balances, incorporating everything I've talked to. Our admixture is warranted for the life of the concrete. So then that spec for common work practices for installing flooring would then cover basically any eventuality. So yeah, you can, speaking directly to Charles' question, you can systemically specify as an assembly and take into account these things. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, the architect, design professional is the author of the spec, not any manufacturer. Keep that in mind. Eliminate waste in all its forms. Don't forget the element of time, and specifically with moisture test, most likely you can't pass. There's no warranty. and it's not even related to adhesion based on published information. That's it for me. I am at 1:20. So questions.
Minutes of questions. I don't have any coming. I have a couple myself, so I'll ask mine first. And if we don't get any more, then you and I can just talk football for the last few minutes. But to me, this is just an absolute no-brainer. I'm just curious, as the president and COO of your business, what is some of your main challenges of growing your business and getting this information out there? Because to me, as a design professional, this 50 cents a square foot, that is an absolute no-brainer to me. So I'm just on the business side, what are some of your biggest challenges? And then my second question is, anybody ever told you your inflection and pausing in the way you deliver the presentation, a Tony Robbins comparison? Have you ever heard that?
Wow, that is pretty heady stuff right there. No, I have never heard that, but I definitely know who Tony Robbins is. Yeah, and you guys aren't even seeing me in person. I mean, I would have probably put 2,000 steps on my Fitbit just in the past 90 minutes, if not more. Because you hear my inflection going, just imagine me, and I had no speaker notes, so all I see is what you guys see on the slides. And so you would have seen me facing you, glancing over my shoulder every once in a while, and if we were in a room, 200 feet wide, I'd be pacing all the way back and forth and walking around and gesticulating, and so it would be all that. So the biggest impact, the biggest impediment are there's 10,000 flooring professionals out there saying something else. But if you ask very few questions, you can punk them out. You can simply ask, and this goes for anybody out there, the next time you're at a meeting, presentation, where somebody says you've got a moisture test, ask them point blank, do you warrant the result of the moisture test? Meaning that if it passes the moisture test and then it fails, will you come replace the floor? Anybody want to guess what they're going to say? 100% of the time? They're going to say no. I actually asked one of the 3 patent holders, Paul Harvey. Oh my gosh. Wow. That is heavy praise right there.
It's way more Tony Robbins.
Hey, I'll take either one, because I know who, that's the rest of the story. Now you know the rest of the story. Yeah, if I can get that down and say that at the very end, now you know the rest of the story. When you think about the profit margin, when you think about, this is all marketing. There's no science here. There is no science. Matter of fact, the science says don't do it, because you're not going to pass the test. And the science says is there's no correlation between the adhesion of what you're testing, with the results of what you're testing, and adhesion. The reason why you're being told to test, there's literature saying that there's no correlation. So literally, you could test and get 95% reading and install and have no issue. You can get a result of 75%, which would be very rare, install and have the floor fail in 6 months. There is no correlation. But with so much money involved, now think about money, how money flows. Remember, follow the money, follow the money. I'm not saying this is white collar crime, but follow the money. How does this work? Well, manufacturer makes the moisture mitigation system, normally associated with a manufacturer of flooring. Okay, then what does it do? It goes down to Charles, I would never do that. No way, never, 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 never. Charles, that's a great question. Adding an admixture like our product eliminate the need of vapor retarder. I was asked that by Skanska in North America, not a small company at all. I was asked by Skanska North America at their North American headquarters in Bluebell, that exact question. Further, they said, if you can do that, we will put you in every single project we have across the country. So, Jason, as the president and CEO of this company, I have Skanska telling me that. You know what I told them? I told them the exact same thing I told Charles. I said, concrete cracks, you can't always tell where it's going to crack. You got one chance to put it down. I said, it pains me to say it, but if you only got money for one, put the vapor retarder down. Because if your floor fails, you can fix that later. replace a vapor charter after you put your concrete down, that ain't going to happen. So I'll tell you guys the same thing, and I'm never going to change that answer. You cannot, and I do know there's a product absolutely that says you can eliminate it. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I can save you money on the vapor charter though, not because I make it, but because of the new standard. The new standard says one that meets the minimum requirements of ASTM E1745. It no longer has to be at least 10 mil or 0.1 perms. It's the minimum performance requirements. So you could use a Class C vapor retarder, and that would still meet the requirements of flooring, unless your local building code says something differently. So I could save you a little money there, but yet be very skeptical. Remember, the message is written by the flooring industry. They sell their flooring products to distributors, who then sell to installers. Anybody want to guess who makes the margin when installing moisture mitigation systems? What? Most likely it would be the flooring installer themselves. So there's actually, and I'm not saying that this is the case, I'm not accusing anyone, but it's kind of insidious that the organization that stands to materially benefit is often the one doing the test. Think about it. I'm maybe making a very, very small percentage on my flooring installation because of the resilient flooring. But if I can show high moisture test and then turn around and sell you a $5 or $6 a square foot moisture mitigation product that I might be pocketing 20% on, I'm making way more money on the moisture mitigation than I am on the original flooring contract. So yeah, there is definitely a conflict there. And who does the flooring manufacturer want to keep happy? I'll tell you right now, not the design professional. Because if your spec lists 3 different sheet vinyls or rubber or wood, that local person that's bidding it, they're going to bid the one that they had the best relationship with. So the manufacturer definitely wants to keep that installer base happy, so that installer base keeps bidding their product. So this is not stacked on the owner's side. And the flooring manufacturer, let's face it, they write the 09 specs, they write the ASTMs, they write the ASTM for testing, they write their instructions requiring the testing, they write their warranty disavowing a warranty for the test. And that process, just in those 7 years, went up 7 times. Yeah, it's working for somebody. The reason why it's not changing, Jason, is because it's working for a lot of people.
A lot of people.
It's not the AC community.
Follow the money.
Yes, sir. That's why. Yes, sir, Paul, I could not agree with you more. He goes, the game is not limited to flooring either. Absolutely correct. It's not. It's not. And, but there are things you can do.
Kurt had one more question. We got time for one more question, and then we're going to be up against it. Kurt asks, what is the long-term, and we talked about this a little bit.
Good question. They've been on the market since early 90s. And in fact, they almost hit the market just at the same time the adhesive change.
Oh, yeah, it's coincidentally.
Yeah. Huh? They've been around going on 27 years now. Okay. In that 27 years, we're the only one that's actually cross-warranted by the largest adhesive manufacturer in the United States. So there you go.
Are you the number one selling? Are you the
no?
The top
No. I was with the number one and changed. Now I compete against them, but we are the only ones with that right there. So even though we were related to the market space as our own product, these are just a couple examples. There's an education job right there. That's a 600,000 square foot project right there. You know, all these different projects, and you can see the architects, the builders. That's Notre Dame right there, indoor sports facility, aquatics. That's a police station. That's a Tiverton, Rhode Island casino and a hotel, a lab out in Idaho. So it doesn't really matter. We can be used in all these different sectors. And
I've had a couple of people chat that they're signed watching this with people in their office. Just let Liz know when she sends you the course evaluation. If you called in, if you and X, Y, or Z are watching on person Z's computer or whatever it is, just Liz handles the CEUs for me. So just let her know. Last but not least, give me a final score for Sunday.
I mean, they've been putting up 30 points a game, but it's no, I'm gonna still go with the Bucks. I'm gonna go I don't know, 27-20.
27-20.
Yeah.
I'll say 27-24 Chiefs.
It's gonna be it. There we go. All right.
Should be a heck of a game. I mean, just could you ask for better? I mean, you have to be ecstatic at seeing Jameis leave and TB12 walk in the door if you're a nut job NFL fan like I am.
Yeah, it's funny because my brother actually called it. Hey, I just sent my email there. So for those who wanted that, I know I saw somebody about Joe Steebrook's contact. There's my email address. Go ahead and what's happening this Sunday? Seriously,
Charles. So now you got to know Charles. Charles is one of our Energy Code ambassadors, and he asked that question honestly. That was not. It wouldn't surprise me if he does not turn it on.
There's my email, but send me an email, and I will gladly link you to Joe Steebrook's literature about the wall, and his literature can help. There's a lot of stuff on him. He's been preaching building
His
science before people even
Building Science Corporation. Those of you
Yep.
who've never been on it, get on his website and read his stuff. He's fantastic.
Well, especially if you're involved with Spear. I mean, he literally, when I say wrote the book, he wrote the book. And if you ever get a chance to hear him speak, oh my God, it's phenomenal.
So everybody, you will get a PDF of the presentation. The PDF does have Dean's email address on it. So you will get that. And then for the CEUs, again, you will get a course evaluation from Liz. Just fill out the course evaluation. She'll handle the CEUs. We'll call it a day. We're a couple minutes over. I apologize for being a couple of minutes late today.